Hello and welcome to Stitching with Cindy Batts. Today I'd like to do two pot holders with you, two different blocks. This block is the Combination Star block and it is from 1897. So this is a public domain block from originally 1897. And this one also is from that same year. So it too is a public domain block. And this one is the Sawtooth Patchwork. And they're constructed very similar. They both have the snowball block, the snowball unit, which is this unit here. This one has the hourglass unit, and I'll show you a very easy way to do that, very quick and easy. Bonnie Hunter has a great tutorial on how to make them very quick and easily. Then this one has, again, the snowball block and the half square triangle. So they're very similar, but they're different. And I just thought I'd put them together. I wanted them to be springy, so I used these purple with white flower calicos, kind of a cream. And I think they came out great. So let's talk about how to make them. Let's start with this one first. Actually, I'm going to change that. Let's do this one first because talking about the hourglass is a little bit trickier. We've talked about before doing the half square triangle. So for the half square triangle, this you want to be 3.5. And then after you sew it into your unit into the block, it'll be 3 inches. So you want to start out with a square that's larger than the 3.5. I like to give myself some grace room, so I usually add up 1 inch. You don't need to add up quite that much, but for me, I'd rather trim down than not have it right. So for the half square triangle, you take your block, your 2 squares, and you draw a line from one corner to the next. And then you do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, and that'll give you 2 identical half square triangles. All right. Now, if you were just going to make one triangle, you could do it at the 3.5, but because I'm going to be using 4, I want them identical, and this is just a little bit time saving. If you were only just making one, you would draw the diagonal, cut right on the diagonal, and it would give you your 3.5 if you started out with a 3.5. Okay, so you just take and trim that down. Now this is the ruler that I like to use. This is a quilt in a day ruler. Let's turn it so you can see it. This is a quilt in the day ruler, and for my purposes, I want a 3.5 inch triangle, and you just lay it right there, those dots on the line. Now, this was a scrap piece, and I think it's actually only a 2.5 inch triangle. All right, but for our project, we want it 3.5. You just lay the dotted line on it and trim it down, okay? Dotted line goes right on the seam. Now, the other side of this has the full inches, not the halves. All right, and this does up to 6.5 inches for your square up. Okay, so that's for your half square triangles, and then you would need 4 for each pot holder. I'm making 2 pot holders, so I'm going to need 8, and then you need your snowball unit. So for the snowball unit, I want it to finish at 3.5, so I cut my squares. This takes 5 squares per pot holder, so I needed to cut 10. And then each of the snowball units is going to need 4 2-inch squares for the snowballing, so you had to have 40 of those to make the 2. And then you simply take and you lay your square face up, put the white square for the snowballing right faces together, and sew the diagonal. Then you trim the diagonal. You trim a quarter of an inch away from the seam on the diagonal, press it back, and there is one corner. Now I do these two corners and then do the other two corners. You know, it doesn't matter which ones, but that way I can do run it through chain piecing, run it through chain piecing, trim, press, and go for the other two. Just saves a little time. All right, so then it's just a matter of putting your units together. So for this one, it has the snowball unit in the center, and then it's just a matter of being sure that you have your half square triangle positioned appropriately. Then it's 3 of those put together, 3 of the snowball units, and then again the snowball unit with the 2 half square triangles. And you just want to nest up your seams. Now I find it easiest to sew with this side up so that when I'm sewing I can see right where my point is. All right, so you don't want to chop off your point too much. I think I did a pretty good job there. This one's away a little bit. I didn't have that quite lined up, but if you use it this side up, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. All right, and you want to nest your seams when you put them together. So if the top seam is laying that way, then the bottom seam you want laying to go that way. And then you just butt them up, put one of your clips on it, and sew with your 1/4 inch seam, and do it again for the top row. So it really is not a hard project. And look at that. While I was talking, I flipped it around. So you just got to be mindful of which way it goes. All right. Now for the little hoop. Now some people like the little hoop, some people don't. When you make that, I simply take a strip of the material, press it to the half, so there's a seam, press mark in the middle, and then fold it over and press again, so you have those raw edges tucked nice inside, meeting that original fold line. Fold it over, press again, and then just run a seam, run a stitch line on both sides. All right, and that is usually about 3.5 inches long. Gives me lots of wiggle room for it. And then when I put mine on, I do not like to have the seams right here in the corner because it just makes it super hard to turn it. So I just put it like that and sew it down, all right, in my very little skinny basting stitching. Okay, so that's how to do this one. We're going to talk just a minute about the quilting of it. So here's my center. I use a layer of flannel, a layer of Insulbright, and a layer of flannel. Now sometimes when I quilt it, I just use the layer of flannel. This time I decided to go through all 3 layers and see how I like that. It is heavy on your machine. I just thought I'd try it. I like how it came out. It's thicker looking, but it's up to you. If you want to just go through the layer of flannel and then put the sandwich together, that's up to you. So I put my top on, went ahead and quilted it right here. You can see where I quilted the edging, just the edge of the color. That's with a real light lavender. Then after I had quilted it, I went ahead and basted really close to the edge, just to make sure all three of my edges were together, so it would make it easier when I turned it. I added that hoop at this point, and then I added my backing, and I just laid that on, clipped it on so it was nice with the right sides together. I left an opening of about that far, and again I sewed it with this part standing up where I could see it, so that I could see right where those points were, so I didn't have too much of it cut off. I didn't want it way in here, and I don't think it's too bad. Then I turned it right side out, trim the little corners before you turn it. I turned it right side out through the hole, used a pencil, not sharp, you know, just a blunt pencil, the end of it to push out my corners. And then I tucked in those raw edges and did, actually I think this is where the raw edge is. I tucked those in and did the top stitching to close it, and all the way around the edging. So that is this block. So let's now talk about the other block. And again, the quilting's the same way, the sandwiching's the same, all of that's the same. So really the only other thing we need to talk about is this unit here. Now this is 3.5 inch square. This comes out at 3.5 is what we're going to trim this down to. So the easy way to make that hourglass, which Bonnie Hunter shows on her fast, easy tutorial for hourglasses, is you take your 2 squares. Now, if you want it to be 3.5 inches, you're going to have to cut your 2 squares larger than that, because you're going to have some seam allowances here. I wasn't quite sure how much it would need, so again, I cut mine 1 inch larger. That really did waste a little bit, but I'd rather have to cut some off. You can see here I have almost 1 inch too much that I cut off the sides, but I would rather trim down and have too much than not enough. So take that for what it is. So for her method, you put your 2 squares together, the 2 colors that you want for your hourglass. You put your 2 squares together and you sew on 2 sides that are opposite each other. All right, whether you do the top, the sides, however, and you sew the 2 sides together. Then you make a diagonal cut, and when you open this up, you have the pieces for your hourglass. Now you might have a couple stitches there like I do, and you just need to pull them apart. Let's see if I can get it to pop apart. There you go. And there's the one side, and this is the other. All right, so you have both pieces for one hourglass using 1 square of each color. There we go, popped apart. And you can see that they're on the opposite sides, and it works out wonderful. There's your hourglass unit. So again, you're just going to fold it over, nestle up your seams, nestle those together. You go, put a nice little clip on it, nestle those up, sew across this part down here at the bottom with your 1/4 inch seam, and then you're just gonna make sure before you trim this down and square it up that those nested seams are laying really nested all the way up, so that when you lay your trimming tool on that seam, that you're got this center line right on that seam for both the top and the bottom piece. All right, you want to make sure those are really lined up, nested really well together, because when you cut that, you're cutting based on that being the middle. All right, and look how nice that works. Okay, now do you want it to open it up and cut it you would do the same thing. You would lay it on the top, center it right here, then cut it so that you have that seam allowance, and then cut the other side, twirl it, and cut the other side. So it's up to you. If you feel like yours are really nested well, that's how I did it, just the one cut for both of them. But if you feel scared about that, just line up that center cross in the middle and cut it that way. All right, and then it's the same as the other. All right, and here are my 3 rows because it is a 3x3 grid. You have your snowball, an hourglass, a snowball, hourglass, square, hourglass, and again the other row. Nest it and sew it together just like the other block. So like I said, they're very similar, so I thought we'd do them together. I hope you have a great day. I hope you try these blocks. I think they would come out really cute doing them together in a table runner or a wall hanger. Kind of gonna butt them up there so you can see how they would kind of make another design. Here, let's do it like this. Let's move this one over here so you can kind of see what kind of design it would make if you had 4 of them. Let's put this one here. Did I lose my center? Here's the top piece, and here's the center. And if I can back it up, you can see that that would really make a cute wall hanging, putting those 2 blocks together. So happy quilting, and please like, subscribe, tell your friends, and hit that bell so you know the next time I have a video. You have a great day. Keep on sewing. Thanks for stopping by. Bye now.